What an episode, man. Jesus Christ. I just rewatched the final scene to refresh myself for this review, and I find myself tearing up again just because of how it makes me feel. I'm getting episode 6 flashbacks where the adrenaline and raw emotion I'm feeling right now after finishing is just unparalleled. Except it's just on a completely different level than episode 6. I'm sorry, this episode was just insane. Single-handedly my favorite scene in the entire episode, and maybe even one of my favorite scenes of the entire series, is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Hiro and Zero Two finally reuniting. The way that they execute and wrote this dialogue here is just excellent, and it lends itself to how much emotional weight everything carried. And I know this is likely what they were going for, but it truly felt like watching this couple make up after a big fight. And I was tearing up during this scene and even afterwards at some points, just due to how incredibly the voice actors performed these lines. Zero Two's voice actress especially delivered so much range. Hearing her speak in a way that we've never heard her speak before, she gave even more power to this scene than there already was. And it was just incredible, man. The emotion, all of the feelings that were conveyed. And of course, I know that you can nitpick where this episode went. I'm really well aware of that. I'm sure people will be saying things like, what was the point of the entire drama last episode if we were just going to end exactly where we would have before? If everyone, including Ichigo, was going to be okay with it in the end, then what was the point of all that? And it's just one of those things right now where I'm sure that that is a valid criticism, but right now I'm just so caught up in the moment that I don't care. The emotions I'm feeling right now are so worth whatever valid criticisms people have. Alright, let's calm down a little bit. Hello everybody, I am PhenomSage, and welcome back to another Darling in the Franxx episode review. Today we're going to be talking about episode 15, Jian. And if you couldn't tell already, I really enjoyed the episode a lot. And the first thing I want to talk about in this episode is actually something that I have actually made a video on already, and that is Ichigo. On the topic of Ichigo in this episode, episode 15 is a perfect example of why you shouldn't jump the gun on these knee-jerk reactions to character choices, because we finally reached what I assume is the end of Ichigo's character arc. The love triangle is over at last, and when she connects to Hiro's mind and truly understands and empathizes with Hiro's thoughts and feelings for Zero Two, she finally realizes that there will never be room for her in his heart. After she's accepted all of this, in my mind, she has redeemed herself. I already understood where she was coming from, but what she did in this episode and where her character was taken has been redeemed. There was a point where she was fighting Zero Two while Hiro told her to stop, and I was legitimately terrified at what kind of backlash she would receive this episode. But thankfully, it was just a ruse, and she is okay with Hiro and Zero Two finally being together. Scratch that, not even just okay, she's happy. I love that line, and I love that we get that focus on Ichigo at the end, finally coming to terms with everything. Now, there is a lot to dissect this episode, but one detail I really enjoyed, bouncing off of the episode title and Hiro and Zero Two finally being together, is near the very end as Hiro and Zero Two talk about the Jian bird and how they survive. This dialogue might seem very familiar because the Jian has been a theme of the series in numerous episodes at this point. But what I loved about this is that the narration spoken here is word for word exactly what Zero Two's opening narration was all the way at the beginning of the series, episode 1. Except now, instead of Zero Two narrating this segment alone, Hiro is narrating it with her. I really enjoy attentions to detail like that, and this show has been really good with connecting and making things come full circle, so that was just the icing on the cake that was episode 15. The next thing I want to focus on is probably what a lot of other people are focusing on as well, because it immediately took me aback the moment that I saw it. The reverse stamen pistol piloting that we were speculating on all the way at the beginning of the series with Hiro and Zero Two, it exists! we get a full look at how the Nines pilot in this episode, and we see that the pistols are the ones controlling the stamens in their case. This is a very interesting distinction, and I wonder if we'll get any more information on it at all, or if it's just something that's used as a way of distinguishing the Nines from the rest of the pilots. What I found most intriguing about this piloting and the Nines themselves, though, is that the stamens are still in complete control of their body inside of the Franxx, even with the pistol controlling them, as opposed to our Franxx, where the pistol's consciousness seems to be transferred into the Franxx themselves, while the body left behind is in some kind of stasis-like state. I am kind of disappointed that the Nines Franxx designs don't really seem to have much variety between them, as I was hoping to get unique appearances similar to our group, but it's whatever. It was nice to at least see them in action this episode, even if we didn't get the full extent of their roles and powers. Now let's talk about Best Boy Goro for a second. This man has just been consistently coming through every chance he gets, and unsurprisingly, he came through again this episode. Hell, if he wasn't here, we might have had another Ichigo backlash session again this week. My question about Goro at this point ties into my thoughts on Ichigo as well. Will they actually end up in a romantic relationship by the end of all this? I ask because we have 9 episodes left of this series, and Ichigo is seemingly at the end of what you can do with her development. She's finally accepted Hiro and 02 together, so the logical next step is to start expanding on her feelings for Goro, and if they'll continue to grow now that she's hopefully over Hiro. I sure hope so, man, because it's about time something went well in Goro's life. One thing I'm happy I said in an episode review way back that came to fruition is seeing the captain of Plantation 26 come back into the story. I had a feeling that they didn't kill him back in episode 6 because they had plans for him now in the future, and I was right. Those plans being to kill him anyways, but his role in the episode here was worthwhile and elaborated on a few mysteries that have been posed up to this point. Obviously, the biggest question right now is, Jesus Christ, he's an old man, what happened? This likely ties directly back into what he was saying in episode 5 when Zorome asks about becoming an adult. He replies with confusion until one of the other squad members says, I don't think he knows, and we were constantly speculating on what this could mean. I think at this point that confirms that the other plantation squad members are aging at a much faster rate than normal. And again, this ties directly back into the mystery of what are the pilots of the other plantations? How are they born if procreation isn't something that's done anymore? It was only after seeing the image of the gray-haired captain of Squad 26 that I realized that the woman that we saw in episode 10 and all the adults, they might be younger than we think. It's pretty natural to assume that these are the rapidly aged pilots themselves, not some elderly people that have been around for years. It also raises the point of why Squad 13 hasn't aged themselves. Obviously, it's because they're a special test team, but what was done differently to them for them to not have aged? Or are they any different and we'll start to see them age now? Who knows? This leads directly into a very interesting image I found examining the connection between all of these plot points. In the episode, we also learn that Dr. Franxx's name is Werner. As you can see from this image, the diagram, Werner syndrome is a disorder that results in premature aging, individuals growing and developing normally until puberty, in which the case of death afterwards is cardiovascular disease, which is a disease of the heart and blood vessels. This would explain the artificial hearts we saw on the woman in episode 10 and how they're surviving now. This does raise the question on if Dr. Franxx himself has suffered from this ailment, or if he really is just an old man who's researched all this for the sake of his own science. Obviously, I don't think that they're using a real-world example here, because the show up until now has embraced very fictitious science. Not much has been grounded in real-world scenarios. We're embracing concepts such as yellow blood cells. But I do think that the connections here mean something, and I think that they do have something to do with the yellow blood cell injections that they've been giving pilots in order to actually operate a Franxx. That transitions us into APE as a whole, which has been a subject of many mysteries, and those mysteries and suspicions only continue continue to grow with this episode. Of course, for one, we see Papa firsthand giving orders to Squad 26 to suicide bomb the Super Lemon Klaxosaur. But we already assumed that Papa and APE as a whole were the kind of organization to give orders like that. It's just another example of how well they've been able to brainwash pilots as a whole. We even see APE self-destruct the plantations themselves as a way of taking out the Klaxosaurs. None of that is the surprising part. The surprising part is what we see come out of the cores of the Klaxosaurs we've been killing. And this has been a theory among the fandom for as far back as I can remember, but I never thought we'd actually be going down this route. They're human! Humans are coming out of the Klaxosaur cores. This is game-changing and is one of the things that makes you look back on the series and second-guess everything that we've seen so far. Why are humans in the Klaxosaurs? Is this what happens to the pilots who get pruned? Is this what would have happened to Hiro if the disease had consumed him in episode 6? Is this something that APE has wanted to happen, or was it merely a side effect of what they were researching? Is Naomi inside one of these things? So many questions, and they don't stop there because we get major world-building details about APE's true goals as well. We don't necessarily know their true motives, but we do get information about what they needed to attain it. The Grand Crevice has always been one piece of what APE desired to realize their wish. Again, what that wish is, we have no idea. But we also have something name-dropped in this conversation called Ring Horny. Its construction is proceeding smoothly apparently, and at this point I can only guess about what it is and why they need it. But if the giant hand that we see at the end of the episode is any indication of the scale of the fights that we'll be having in the future, I'm guessing it's a giant Franxx unit, because you know Trigger can't resist upping the stakes to that degree. And on the topic of this hand, again, I can only speculate about what this is, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably the last measure or the final boss of the Grand Crevice. How we're taking this thing down next episode, I have no idea. That might be the first opportunity that the show uses to show what this Ring Horny is. And even if it's not, I feel like APE will have to step in to take whatever this thing is down. Another very interesting detail that we get about APE that we had no idea about before is where they are located. From the opening, I thought that one of the plantations that we saw on the ocean was where APE headquarters was located, but it's in this episode where we see their true base of operations, Cosmos, a mobile aerial fortress located in the sky. Whether they're actually in space or not, who knows, but the fact that they're up there at all is super cool and also worrying, thinking about how we're inevitably going to get up there to take them down. Another piece of clarification that we get in this episode is on something that I was confused about for quite some time. You'll recall that I was confused about how 02 remembered everything that happened in her past and yet never remembered Hiro specifically, and was actually willing to kill him in order to return to the unknown person that was her darling. Well, now we finally learn that during the memory erasing process, there were specific memories of hers that could not be erased, likely her strong emotional connection to someone treating her like a human rather than a monster. So it's nice that we got that clarification. I feel though like you could have just told us that a couple episodes ago. I don't think it would have changed anything, and in fact I feel like the only thing it would do was clear up the confusion that I had. But it's whatever, it's a small nitpick. And of course we need to talk about how hype the new Strelitzia design is. Oh my god. Now that 02 has finally found her darling again, it's taken a new and beautiful form, and I love it. I think I still prefer the old design more, but this new design is excellent as well, so I'm okay with it. Overall, just a phenomenal episode. It had everything I could possibly want: character arc payoff, stellar action and animation, mystery and world building details, new questions posed, and just a beautiful emotional core. Thank you all so much for watching this Darling in the Franxx episode review. Please, for the love of Christ, let me know what you thought of the episode and every single moment that stood out to you. If you enjoyed this or anything I had to talk about, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see any of my content in the future. Speaking of subscribing, welcome aboard all of the new people who have found my channel through the In Defense of Ichigo video. I'm glad to have you here, and I hope that you'll stick around as we continue through this wild journey that is Darling in the Franxx. Thank you so much again for watching, and of course, as usual, have a great day.